Welcome back. Governor Jerry Brown faces a massive $25 billion budget shortfall over the next 18 months. As a result, significant cuts are being proposed. Two proposed cuts, the elimination of redevelopment agencies, or RDAs, and enterprise zones, have generated a lot of debate. Proponents of RDAs argue that they encourage investment in economically distressed and blighted areas and create hundreds of thousands of jobs. The Legislative Analyst's Office, or LAO, on the other hand, reports this vastly overstates the economic effects of RDAs. So I want to get your thoughts. We'll start with you, Dave. Are RDAs a luxury or a necessity?
They've been utilized well in certain communities, and obviously there's been a lot of fraud as well. In the areas that they use them well and that they help, obviously I've talked to some success stories. I've been on properties and invest in companies that have done well with them. And if they don't or if they make the cuts and we lose them, we have to find a way to offset those.
And that's $1.7 billion that they're assuming is going to help the state budget. We have to find that someplace else.
No, what I meant by that was if we're going to take that away from the locals as a tool.
The RDA money.
The RDA money as a tool, we need to find a way to offset that. If it's a regulatory offset where they don't have to spend as much money or make it streamline a process to get their building in or their business or whatever the process might be, but find a way to offset what those monies would have done for the community.
What do you think? Is it a luxury or a necessity?
You know, I believe that as we're making budget decisions, we have to maintain programs that provide tools for economic recovery and job creation. And RDAs and enterprise zones have certainly been two of those tools. As David said, there's no question that there's been some abuses in California, but in other areas they're run extremely well. So I would prefer that we focus on reforming RDAs and enterprise zones to make sure that they're performing according to certain performance criteria. But we must keep them. 1,600 jobs in Stanislaus County are directly attributable to the strength of our enterprise zone.
So you don't want to see the elimination of RDAs?
I do not.
Okay. What about Fresno?
Fresno has benefited greatly and has proven itself responsible with the use of the money. It was audited, and there were no mistakes that were found that were considered significant.
I've seen research on that says basically Valley towns have done a better job than a lot of other areas in utilizing their RDA funds.
Our RDA and enterprise zones have brought 488 new businesses to our valley, and specifically to Fresno. I don't want to see that taken away.
Well, you know, RDAs, it's kind of complicated in how they work. If they do decide to eliminate RDAs, there's a question, is that even legal in light of Prop 22 that limited the state's authority to redirect redevelopment property tax revenues? Is there going to be a problem there even implementing this?
It will most certainly go to the courts, and that's what I have been assured, unfortunately, by the redevelopment agency itself.
So do you see a problem with this going forward just from an implementation standpoint?
Absolutely. I think it ends up in court, and I think that's the strongest argument against the governor's proposal to eliminate RDAs, is it flies in the face of the will of the voters who clearly took a stand in voting for Prop 22. It's tempting to take that money and to spend it on core services like public safety and education, but the fact of the matter is the voters voted against the state rate of local dollars, and I believe it's our responsibility to uphold the will of the voters and make sure that that doesn't take place again.
Well, let me ask this, and it kind of follows up on what Dave was saying, and that is elimination of the RDAs. If we replace it with a successor agency, one of the things that the governor's talking about is a constitutional amendment to lower the threshold for passing a tax or general obligation bond from 67% to 55%. Are those the kind of solutions that you're talking about?
No, I was talking more along the lines of regulatory reform. If there's a cost or a burden on an industry that basically tells them not to come to California, and we offset that with RDA money, we need to start looking at reforming some of those, or finding ways to make it more efficient, lower our energy costs, obviously invest in something that would help make people more competitive from California.
Any thoughts on the 55% threshold requirement? Linda?
I don't think that's the will of the voters. Certainly in my district, they have spoken very loudly. In the last 6 years, every bond measure, every tax measure has failed. So I think I owe it to my district
to
represent
them. But at what level are they failing? They're getting more than 55%, but not two-thirds?
Some have failed as high as 85%, and that's in Assembly District 29.
As in 15% against the tax and 85%? I'm sorry, 85% against the tax and 15% for?
That's correct, and those numbers tell me that what the Central Valley is looking for is not an opportunity to make it easier for Sacramento to raid their wallets.
Okay. Well, when we come back, we'll talk about what some are saying is Governor Brown's biggest proposed change, an historic realignment of the state-local relationship by shifting funding and responsibility for certain services from the state to local governments. That conversation when we return. This is the Maddy Report.